Critical Drinker came out with a new video called Fantastic Four New Beginning or A Little Too Late. Now, I saw the Fantastic Four trailer. It looks awesome. I'm hoping it's good. I am reserved. I am optimistically reserved for the film, but here we go.
Superheroes than the Fantastic Four with their It's tough to think of a more quintessential group of superheroes than the Fantastic Four, with their disparate sets of powers and abilities balanced against their interpersonal dramas and rivalries, their iconic blue uniforms, and the equally iconic villains they were pitted against. As Marvel's first family, they really do epitomise that classic 1960s comic book era of optimism, progress, and confidence. So it's kinda weird that Hollywood has made such a complete mess of bringing them to the big screen. From the cheesy...
Alright, I'm gonna be real with you. The 2000s Fantastic Four, say what you want about it, that first movie was fun. It was a fun movie. It wasn't great. It wasn't a cinematic masterpiece by any means, but it was an enjoyable film. I thought that Chris Evans was really good at the Human Torch. The guy from S.H.I.E.L.D. was good as The Thing. Jessica Alba's hot, like really hot. So that, like, dude, I think every kid in the 2000s was bricked up for Jessica Alba as Invisible Girl. And then I can't remember the dude's name who played Mr. Fantastic, but he was fantastic in the part. I think everybody was cast well except for Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom guy, the guy from Nip and Tuck, that dude just was not good as Doctor Doom. He was mid. But I thought it was an enjoyable film overall. I thought the camaraderie was really good. The sequel sucked so much wiener. It sucked the amount of wiener that nobody should be, like, healthy after sucking that much.
Roger Corman movie in the 90s that was made purely to retain the rights to the characters, without telling any of the actors, by the way, to the Tim Story movies from the 2000s that couldn't seem to decide if they wanted to be cool, serious and edgy, or goofy, disposable popcorn flicks, and so tried to do both at the same time with predictable results. Not to mention the most baffling interpretation of Galactus that the human mind could
Yeah, dude, that sequel was absolute trash. The first one I thought had a lot of charm, and it was more of a popcorn flick, and it had some serious tones, and I just think that the actor couldn't land being Doctor Doom. But on the idea of the first film, I thought it had a lot going for it, and I think a lot of people poo-poo on it a little harder than it should. I mean, it was a fun movie. The sequel was just so bad, though. Nothing was good about that sequel. I mean, Johnny Storm getting all the powers of the Fantastic Four to fight him, dumb.
Possibly conceive.
What the hell is even that?
And finally, the tragically but also unintentionally hilarious Fant Four Stick from 2015, a misguided attempt to turn the bright...
I feel so bad for all of the actors involved in this film. Every single one of them I feel bad for. So the backstory on this is kind of funny. The director was like drunk the entire time, never showing up, and all of these actors in this film who played parts for each of the Fantastic Four were actually incredibly good actors. The sad thing is, like, if it wasn't for Michael B. Jordan doing it was Fruitvale Station, which is a really good movie, but Fruitvale Station was the one that really saved him from being, like, losing his career. And then Michael B. Jordan had Whiplash that same year, both kind of independent Sundance style films that really put them on the scene of, oh, these guys can fucking act, and it saved their career, because this is a career ending movie. And if you look at the other two people, they really haven't they've been in stuff, but they haven't been like headliners like they used to be, or like names that you would see them in the movie, but I like them. And it sucks because, like, the girl who played the Invisible Girl, Mrs. Fantastic, she actually was what's his name, Sue Storm, or I can't remember, Sue Storm, I think, but her Johnny Storm, Sue Storm. So the girl who played Sue Storm, you just don't see her anymore. She's gone, dude. Like, she's in, like, smaller, or she'll be in, like, a show on Amazon or some shit, but she's not, like, the main attraction. Like, I remember before that movie, she was, like, more important, but that really hurt her career for a while. And the guy who played The Thing, when was the last time you fucking saw him? But Miles Teller and Michael B. Jordan had, like, success because they had two other movies that were really good that saved their fucking asses.
Write an optimistic superhero team into some dark and edgy story of body horror and psychological trauma made by a man who openly professed to hate in comic book movies, and who was, by all accounts, such an incompetent bellend on set that someone else had to finish his own movie for him. And in the 10 years since the Fant Four Stick debacle, he's made a grand total of one movie, which sucked. All of this is to say that the Fantastic Four kind of failed to ride the whole cinematic superhero wave, either coming too early before the genre had properly matured, or trying to muscle their way in at the peak of popularity with a rushed and poorly made product. But what's a difference a decade and a major corporate acquisition makes? And now here we are. The Fantastic Four have come back to Marvel after more than 30 years in the wilderness. Ironically enough, they might actually be facing the opposite problem now, finally figuring out how to make the IP work on the big screen, only to realise they're 10 years too late. The wave has passed and people just aren't that interested anymore. But I'll come back to that one later. Believe that.
I actually think that there's still interest in this. I think there's still interest in it. I think the problem is that there's been a lot of bad movies, and you're starting to get fatigue on bad movies. But bringing a good movie to theaters and having something that's well marketed and ends up being a good film just overall. Take, for example, Deadpool. Deadpool 3 did incredibly amazing at the box office. And I still think, I know that it was the third movie in an already really good franchise, and same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but you look at the idea of, oh, if you build a good movie, people will come, because the fact that it already has that IP on it, there's already nerds that want to go watch the movie, and they're going to watch it regardless. But if they come out and say, this movie actually fucking rocks, then more people are going to go watch the movie. I think there's still a lot of potential here for it to be a very good film. It's just they have to get over the stupid shit and the bad writing. Fire all of those cringe writers and then get back to the basics. And it's kind of looking like they're going with the 60s vibe and putting it further back in time. And I think that this could really work. I'm really excited to see what they do with this.
Anyway, all this bullshit brings me to the first teaser trailer for the new Fantastic Four movie, First Steps. Because this is the first step towards rebuilding the MCU, I guess. So what do I actually think about it? Well, I kinda like it.
Really?
For a start, it's set in an alternate 1960s style retro-futuristic universe, because I guess Marvel aren't quite ready to admit that the whole multiverse thing was their worst idea since trying to build Captain Marvel as the new face of the MCU. You know, I wonder what the hell...
And it's sad that Captain Marvel is actually an interesting character, and she could have been good, but they did her so piss poorly. She just, there's this weird thing with how the movies have been written around women characters in particular, where they're almost afraid to show them struggle and fight for their position. And I think that just kind of shoving her in and then oversensitizing the audience with like, oh, you gotta like her. It was just a bad movie, because the first movie's not really that great. It's fine. I mean, Jude Law was a very forgettable villain. I only know Jude Law's in it because I like Jude Law, and I watched the movie because Jude Law was in it, and he was a nothing burger. He was boring. He was sleepy. The only thing I remember is like the last scene of the film, and it sucks because there's a lot of stuff before that film that I wanted to see, and it was just so fucking forgettable. I mean, I'm pretty sure you find out how Nick Fury loses his eye, and it's like a cat or some shit. I can't really even remember, and that sucks because I actually like enjoy Captain Marvel as a character. I mean, she was never the best character, but she was interesting enough, and I think that they could have adapted her a little better, showed her have a little more struggle, but instead they're like, most ultimate power being, no other reasons to question that, just enjoy the film. And I'm like, I don't though. I don't. Give me reasons. Give me more struggle. She didn't seem to struggle. She just kind of fucking, the only person who was getting beat around was Nick Cage or Nick Fury.
Larson's even up to these days. Oh, okay. Good luck with that one, Bree.
It's Hollywood, baby.
But it does allow the film to avoid all the MCU baggage and the expectations and the ridiculously convoluted storylines that have bogged down every major project in recent years. It feels like kind of a fresh start somehow, like the entire IP is going back to its roots, back to a simpler, more innocent and optimistic time before all the bad stuff. And I have to admit, I was liking what I saw. I liked the charmingly earnest, old-fashioned intro to the team. No quippy one-liners that feel like they're desperately trying to emulate mid-2000s Joss Whedon. No gratingly obnoxious girl bosses putting the guys in their place. No sky beams and armies of disposable enemies to fight, and brain-damagingly over-the-top CGI. I like the focus on the fantastic...
And you know, I actually didn't mind the CGI in Endgame. I think that, like, and I understand there's like over-the-top CGI, and I think it's worked. So, like, Shang-Li, or I think it was Shang-Li, whatever the one with the rings was, the Asian one. It was good. I like that movie. Shang-Chi. I enjoyed that film. I thought it was fun, but the CGI does get really bad in that movie. It's been kind of the problem of the MCU is it's like over-the-top CG and then just not knowing what to do and just throwing everything at the wall because they're like, oh, more characters, without going down to the basics of what make characters good. And I think the closest we got was Shang-Chi, and it wasn't even, like, compared to the beginning parts of the MCU, it's not even that good. And that's the problem, is it never went back to the basics of, like, let's build these characters. Like, oh, we're the MCU. Here's another MCU movie. You better enjoy it because it's an MCU movie. That's enough to carry it. We have this pedigree. Like, check out our pedigree of great movies, and I'll go watch Eternals. And Eternals fucking sucks. So it's one of those things that now they've lost that faith they had that everything that they were coming out with was at least competent. Now most of the shit isn't competent. So they got to go back to basics. They got to actually put the work back in to regain the love of the audience. And I think I'm starting to see this is starting to show signs of stuff like, hey, we fucked up. Let's get back to the basics so we can keep this money train moving. Because at the end of the day, they want to make money. And if they keep making flops, the company's not going to do well because, I mean, Disney Plus is bleeding subscribers right now. So something has to change at Disney. And I think by going back to basics and stopping with a bunch of, like, random, fire a bunch of shit writers and then actually get people who are competent at the helm, we'll be in good situation.
Fantastic Four is a family unit, even if it does come across as slightly heavy-handed at times. Like I almost expected Vin Diesel to pop up with a bottle of Corona and start toasting La Familia. I like the retro-futuristic technology and the cityscapes and the cars with fins on them. Just like the comics, it's a positive and maybe slightly innocent 1960s vision of what the future might hold for humanity. You know, instead of the horrifying dystopia we actually live in. I like the fact that Marvel seemed to have fully embraced the look and feel of the original comics, from the bright blue outfits to Galactus and his massive fucking head, all the way down to the Thing's character design, rather than trying to reshape them into something cooler and slicker to appeal to modern audiences. And by that, I don't mean modern audiences. I mean people whose only experience with comic book characters with all their weird and wonderful shapes and sizes and outlandish designs is whatever sanitized, toned down, focus-tested corporate sludge that Marvel decided to shit out in recent years. These are
By the way, I'm going to say something because I saw Black Panther on screen. I think both Black Panther movies are incredibly good. I liked that the sister took up the mantle. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that because wokeism or whatever. I think she was the logical choice. I know that people are like, well, she just girl bossed into it. And she didn't. She struggled. She fought for the position because she was kind of forced into the position because of her brother's death. And I think that there was a lot good in that movie. Now, the Namor and the whole Namor thing was kind of done a little poorly. I think it wasn't the best part of the movie. But all the stuff around his sister I thought was really good. And, I mean, Chadwick Boseman died. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Just slam some other random jabroni in it? I mean, bring back fucking Michael B. Jordan from the dead to have him be Black Panther after he was a terrorist? I mean, come on, guys. What was the better option? She was the perfect option. And I think a lot of people didn't want her to be that because, like, they were sick of seeing, like, characters being replaced by female characters. But in the terms of the MCU, in that little bubble, I think it would have worked because, like, what can you do inside? Like, what do you do? Recast him? That's so... It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. It would feel wrong in a way. I wouldn't have watched the movie on principle that it's like... I would have watched it eventually, but I wouldn't watch it in theaters. It would have been one of those things that it was like Chadwick Boseman was the Black Panther. I couldn't see anybody else in the position, and when he was gone, it was hard for me to even picture anybody else, but I felt like she was the only logical choice.
All positive changes. I don't know if any of them will actually carry over to the final movie, but for the time being at least, it does give me some kind of hope that maybe Marvel are learning from past mistakes.
Not a great plan.
That being said, there are a few minor things about this teaser that jumped out at me, and not in a good way, like when you jump out from a closet wearing a hockey mask while your significant other is passing by at the top of the stairs, and then come up with a completely plausible explanation for why they tripped and fell to their death. The first issue is the casting. Sue Storm in the comics is supposed to be in like her mid-20s, and even the Josh Trank version adhered to that. Well, Vanessa Kirby is 38 years old now, and no offense to her, but well, she definitely looks it. I can't say I was exactly loving this dialogue from The Thing either. Like, considering how much time the teaser devotes to it, I kept thinking it was building to some absolutely killer payoff. But nope.
I want to add a couple cloves of garlic. Not because it's not delicious, I just want to add a little bit of zip.
In fact, I'm not even sure if the movie thinks it's supposed to be funny, or if it's just meant to be some chill slice of life segment.
I think it's slice of life. That's what I took from it. I didn't think it was supposed to be funny. I thought it was just like slice of life, showing them. What I feel is this is already an established Fantastic Four. This is already established. You're gonna see, it's going to show you what happened to them and what led them to there. But they have been in the Fantastic Four for a very long time. They are established Fantastic Four. They've been doing this shit for a while. I think if we're gonna see anything with Doctor Doom, it's gonna be like a younger Robert Downey and how they had to like push him out, and then it's just Galactus. This is a later. I'm hoping it's a later where they've already established. You've seen the 20. You haven't. We've seen the 20-year-old. We've seen all this. They're just skipping the fucking filler and getting right to the story, and that's what I hope they do. I don't want to see another rebuilding of a superhero group. I want you to put it in the background. I want you to give me some context throughout, like flashbacks or something, and let me get right to the nitty-gritty.
For the four. Either way, it felt kind of tedious and didn't really tell me much about anyone involved, and so I kept wondering, why is this even in the trailer? It's become a meme at this point that any new high-profile project seems to have an obligatory role for Pedro Pascal, like he's determined to be in every film and TV production in Hollywood. But like most memes, there's also a grain of truth in there somewhere. I mean, I can't exactly blame the guy for enjoying his success after slogging away for years in minor roles, but well, there's definitely...
Bro, let's keep in mind that like 10 years or 15 years ago, this guy's biggest role was being in the... So there's this show called Burn Notice, right? With Bruce Campbell was a side character, like one of the main reoccurring characters in Burn Notice. He was like the funny, goofy guy. And if you don't know who Bruce Campbell is, go watch the Evil Dead movies. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to explain it. But he got a spin-off movie with Burn Notice, which is just kind of terrible. It's just pretty terrible. And the only other like meaningful character in that is Pedro Pascal, and he's terrible in the role too. And it's just so crazy to see him on this really shitty TV movie to then being the guy. He's in everything. You can't trip over your own dick and land in a puddle of poop without seeing Pedro Pascal as you're falling.
An element of Pascal fatigue creeping in these days. He's a good actor and everything, but holy shit, I don't need to see him every time I turn on my TV, especially in roles he's not really suited to. Just like Vanessa Kirby, he's a little too old to be playing Reed Richards at 49, but on the plus side, I think a slightly geeky character like this fits his sensibilities better than trying to market him as some rugged, grizzled tough guy. In terms of the movie's box office prospects, I have absolutely no idea with this one. It's definitely being built up as the centerpiece of Marvel's lineup this year because let's be honest, Captain America's practically a lost cause at this point and nobody's gonna give much of a shit about Thunderbolts, so this movie is where they need to win and win big. And I just don't know.
I think there is a smart move here. I think what happened was they had already created these scripts, already created the stuff. They were they started to see the fallout of everything else, and these were already in development. That's why we saw reshoots on Captain America. There's a lot of people like, oh, it was probably more political and they saw that Kamala lost and that's why they changed. I don't believe that. I think that's bullshit. What my thing was, I think that they saw the reaction that a lot of people are having to the MCU and were like, shit, we need to change things up. How do we save this movie from being a cringe all over the place, tied into the timeline bullshit? How do we save this? And there really wasn't a way. They reshot fucking no content, released Red Hulk to make up a modicum of money and just to save face, and now I think that this is them turning a page. Now that's overly optimistic, but I just think that if they go back to basics and start rebuilding, they can have something. I think that they should. I do think he is right on the idea that Pedro Pascal is a little old, because here's the problem with them casting these well-established older actors is there's no upward mobility. You'll have that actor for a little while, and then he'll age out of the role. If you want to do like 5 films, you're dead. You're dead. I mean, there's no way. There's no way he's going to be fucking ancient. I think that they, and I'm not saying that I want 5 Fantastic Four movies, but if they want to do something in the same vein as even at like the MCU of past, do this long arching thing, I think maybe it'll get to the point. I mean, you make this last like 10 years, you're fucked. You're fucked on Pedro Pascal. He's going to be like 58 by the time this shit's done. I don't know. I probably would have gone in a younger direction. I mean, Chris Evans wasn't even that old when he was in his 30s, but when he did Captain America, but he wasn't like, I don't know. He wasn't like the Pedro Pascal old. I don't know. I don't know. It just feels. I understand they're going with an established thing, and they could always switch it up later. I just felt like the guy that they had in the Doctor Strange movie, the guy from, oh, wasn't he from The Office? He was really well casted, and I think that he had a lot of opportunity to move upward. I thought he fit the character more, and I think Pedro Pascal will do a good job, but I don't know, that he was my biggest question mark when I saw the trailer, when I saw the announcement. I was like, I don't know if Pedro Pascal fits this role, but we'll see.
If it can deliver on those expectations. From what I've heard, Marvel have finally realised just how badly they've fucked up the MCU and have spent a lot of the past couple of years trying to course correct behind the scenes. And if I'm not mistaken, Fantastic Four might just represent the first steps in this new creative direction.
Right.
That's nice and all, but I can't help wondering if there's going to be enough of an audience left to appreciate it. Like, even the most die-hard Marvel fan would have to admit the franchise isn't exactly the cultural and financial juggernaut that it used to be.
And that's true. Here's the thing, though. If a movie looks appealing enough and it looks good enough and it gets early reviews that are decent, or it gets reviews where the critics are like being stupid about it, like with Deadpool, you can see people going out to see it just because they want to. It's going to get, if it gets enough people that are like, this is just a good movie, people will go see it. Maybe not opening weekend. It might not be the biggest opening weekend like compared to a lot of the MCU movies, but it could get that second weekend jump, or the after initial reviews jump, where people are like, oh shit, Marvel made a good movie. Because if something's good enough, you'll start seeing people have buzz about it online, and people will go see it. It happens all the time. You see it pretty consistently, and I think all they have to focus on is making a good movie with good dialogue, good story development, and people will go watch the movie. That's just how it works.
And aside from Deadpool and Wolverine, it's been churning out mostly flops and underperformers for years. Add to this a growing boredom with formulaic, cookie-cutter superhero movies, and you've got all the ingredients for a film that isn't going to be nearly as big a deal as Marvel are trying to make it, especially when it's going more or less head-to-head with another major superhero movie from DC, a film that's likely to cannibalize a lot of its audience. I don't know, man, I don't really want this one to fail, because if it does represent a change of creative direction for Marvel, then I'd like to see that change pay off. But at the same time, I'm not convinced it's going to be the start of a new golden age for the genre either. Marvel are gambling big time on this one, and right now I don't particularly like their chances. Anyway, that's all I've got for today.
I think that they have a chance, and I think the movie they're going up against is Superman, and the Superman trailer looked good. It looked good, don't get me wrong. I'm not the biggest Superman guy. I've never been the biggest Superman guy. They're throwing crypto in. They got a lot of stuff. They showed Superman all bloody, like he gets beat up. There's maybe a chance that it's really good. I like James Gunn. I really like James Gunn. I've always liked James Gunn. I think he has the potential to turn DC around. I just don't know. It's a big question mark. The trailer looked okay. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. When I saw the trailer from Fantastic Four, I'm like, yes, this is it. This is what I want. I saw the Superman one. I'm like, this is cool. This is cool, but I wasn't hyped. The Galactus reveal, everything that was going on in the Fantastic Four one, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. It feels like the comic. Yes, this is it. And I mean, the Superman one feels like the comic, but I don't know. It feels almost like there was a movie that came out called Superman Returns, right? And it was supposed to be a reboot / sequel to the Chris Reeves Superman, which this one almost feels akin to those Chris Reeves Superman movies, moving away from the Zack Snyder universe, where it's getting away from the dark and gritty and it's going back to its roots. So I see a lot of comparisons between the two. I just think that when it comes to DC, they've tried that in the past and it hasn't worked. So I'm interested to see what they do, but I'm not as interested as Fantastic Four. This looks so promising. We've had good Superman movies. We've only had okay Fantastic Four movies. So I think a lot of people who are fans of the Fantastic Four, which I know there's a lot out there, have wanted this to be a good movie for a very, very long time. And if it ends up being good, I think even if it does does okay at the box office, it will be a movie that fans will stick around and be like, yeah, the MCU might be sucking, but God, was that Fantastic Four movie good. That's all I gotta say on that one, folks.